So anyway, let me share with you some of the results from our city, our recent city survey. I'm going to switch over to a spreadsheet that I have that I keep online. I will make this available to people, to everyone. Sorry. Let me get to this one. I think, is this the one you're seeing? Let me just make sure. Yep. So I have charts associated with this, with the data. I have all the data in right now from the survey. There were about 1,270 respondents, I believe. Let me just check real quick on this. Yes, 1,270, exactly 1,270 respondents. One of the first questions we asked was, what do you think the quality of life in Highland is? And the answer to that is that a good majority of the people think it's excellent. Another healthy chunk think it's good, and then if you think that we're just doing fair, there's a smaller number, and then poor, there's a small sliver. So overall, out of a 0 to 4 scale, we are getting a 3.6, which is 1 point up from the last 5 years. The last 5 years, we've been at 3.5 every year. This is our 6th survey, and we did a bump to 3.6. So progress in the right direction, especially during a difficult year of COVID. We asked people how they felt about the different city services. And you can see that the lowest is road maintenance, but I will let you know that that has progressively moved up every year since we started our 7-year road plan. And so while it's the lowest, it is actually probably had the biggest increase year over year. Our fire services get really high rating. Our EMS services get really high ratings. Garbage, surprisingly enough, gets really good rating. I know with respect to recycling, I frequently get a question, why don't we have recycling every week? And that's because, at least according to our last service provider, not the current one that we have, Waste Management is our current provider, but our last provider looked at the amount of recycling that we generate, and they said it really wouldn't pay for itself to do it every week because there just isn't enough recycling going out there. Now, you may be an exception as an individual, but looking at the city as a whole, we don't produce enough recycling to warrant doing it every week. And if we did, then we would obviously have to increase the recycling rate. One of the things that you can do that helps with recycling is if you flatten your boxes, flatten your milk cartons, you can get a lot more into the recycling. You can go to the city website and it will tell you, and look up recycling, and there's a page that identifies the things that we can put in recycling and the things that we can't. One of the things that I think sometimes people do put in recycling that they can't are pizza boxes. Anything that's had food in it is considered contaminated, and you need to just put that in the regular garbage. Now, the good thing is, like with a cardboard box, like the pizza box, it will degrade in the landfill pretty quickly. And so we're actually helping our landfills by putting things that degrade quickly in there. One of the worst things that you can put in the recycling is grocery bags, the thin plastic ones. They're not particularly good in any place, but in the case of recycling, I've gone to the recycling plant, and the machines there get gummed up with those recycling, with the plastic grocery bags, and it causes them to have to shut down their systems to unjam it. So if you can avoid putting grocery bags in the recycling, that would be awesome. The other thing that we get asked a lot relative, or not a lot, but occasionally relative to recycling and garbage is green waste. We have tried green waste in the past, and we just could not get enough residents to sign up for it to make it worthwhile for the garbage company to start a new service. So my suggestion is that you order if you order a second can for 6 months, order it in the spring, return it in the fall, and you can use that for your green waste, your lawn clippings, or your tree trimmings. And again, those are actually good things to put into the standard landfills because they are biodegradable. We used to be able to have the green waste processed at the landfill plant or the transfer station. Actually, the sewer people were doing that, but because of the odor, there was a lawsuit filed against the sewage plant, and they can no longer mix the green waste with the extractions from the sewer, and so not allowed, unfortunately. But I would just do a second can or third can, whatever your circumstances might be, for 6 months. There is a minimum 6 months that you have to keep a can when you order it, but you can get a new one and then get rid of it in the fall. So you won't be spending money for a can you don't need in the winter. Utility billing, we do okay. It is way more efficient for us if you sign up for electronic billing. But you can, keep getting the bill in the mail and paying. I see most of us pay with bank auto pay, so that is convenient. It is also nice to get a paper copy of the newsletter instead of an electronic one. For some reason, I enjoy reading paper more than I do electronic stuff. Library gets really good ratings. Looking across thing, we're doing much better in communication with residents than we have been in the past. And really, the only things where we have high negatives or higher negatives is code enforcement, open space maintenance, and road maintenance. We are improving on open space maintenance. Last year we did a much better job than years previous, and we'll continue to focus on that. With respect to code enforcement, the city is not proactive in code enforcement. We are reactive, so we respond to complaints. You can complain anonymously, and then we go check it out, and then if it gets to a point where we have to go to court, then we can be the witness because we've investigated and seen an issue rather than the individual that made the report. So don't worry when you make a report. You can remain anonymous, but we just don't have the manpower to be proactive because we can't check every home for every potential code violation. It just doesn't make sense. If there's something that concerns you, reach out, call the city. You can also report a claim online through our website. There's something called Report a Concern, and code violations are one of them. And so go ahead and do that online or call it in, and we'll follow up on it. Something that we are putting in the budget for next year is a part-time code enforcement officer. So we will be hiring someone to focus on that, and we'll be able to do a better job of following up, and then let existing staff focus on what their primary job is. And currently staff draws straws, and whoever gets the short straw gets the code enforcement assignment. Not really, but it is assigned to a staff member that has other jobs. And while it's a good experience, it can be wearing on you if you're not skilled at it. And so we're looking to hire somebody part-time that's skilled at doing that job. All right, so next chart to look at is, let's see, elected officials and staff. Now you can see library staff and general city staff get very, very high ratings, as does Public Works. Elected officials, we have a little bit more negative than the others, but we still are doing actually quite well. And we are actually up 2 points over last year. And that's 0.2 of a point over last year. So we made progress across the board. The elected officials made the most progress. So actually for the city, last year was a really good year in terms of progress and making improvements. There was a question on the survey about taxes, like if we increased property taxes for the purposes of Mountain Ridge Park and Beacon Hills Park, is that something you'd support? Or for landscaping and trails, or for a rec center, or for the general city, or currently there are 18 subdivisions in Highland that pay $20 a month to support the neighborhood parks and trails in their area. And would you be willing to raise taxes to reduce or eliminate that fee? Clearly that was the least popular one. And I'll just make a note there. This is something when I became mayor, I started doing a lot of research on, and my thinking was, well, let's exclude trails from what that $20 goes to. Let's exclude any parks that are reservable or big parks like Beacon Hills Park or Mitchell Hollow, or there's a park in Wimbledon that you can reserve for soccer. So any park that's reservable for use by a sports team, that's a general city park. The other parks would be more neighborhood parks, and we don't have that many neighborhood parks in the general part of the city. They're pretty much limited to open space areas with one exception. And so when I looked at it that way, and I did a lot of research on costs, and it turns out that if we only pay for open space in open space subdivisions and neighborhood parks, the monthly cost is a little bit over $20 a month. And in that, you have to include replacing playgrounds about every 10 years. And playgrounds, believe it or not, are incredibly expensive. I was shocked at how much they cost. They actually cost between $50,000 and $100,000 to replace a big playground set. Who'd have thunk that? I would never have. But anyway, so the current open space fee actually is reasonable, because it's a little bit more than what we spend on just the neighborhood parks and the open space that's in those areas, which primarily benefit the residents there, although other people use them as well. So, life, it's just hard to make life fair across the board. It's just really, really, really difficult because there's always exceptions. But trails, adding a property tax for trails, that is still not more than 50% in the likely or very likely category. So that's probably not going to happen. The one tax it's called a RAP tax, that has some support, actually more than 50% support. And it's called a Recreation, Arts, and Parks tax. It's sometimes called a ZAP tax because it's zoological park, arts tax. It functions like this. In our cities, we're allowed to charge up to 1% for our sales tax that we add to the sales tax. Half of that comes to us directly. The other half goes into a pool that the state manages that's redistributed based on population, and I believe road miles, how many miles of roads you have in it. I think that's what it is. It's either pure population or population plus roads. And actually 27% of the sales tax that we get is the local portion of our sales tax. The rest of it comes from that general pool. If we add a wrap tax, that means we're adding 0.1% onto the sales tax that you pay when you go to ACE or CVS. Now, if you buy prescription drugs at CVS, I don't think there's no sales tax on the prescription drugs, but everything you buy at ACE has a sales tax associated with it. That's the best example. So that what you spend there, 0.1% goes directly to the city and can be used to help fund either capital projects or operating costs for parks, art. Some of that could go to the Art Council. If we had a community theater, it could help with that. We don't, but it could go towards that. That tax is something, if the council passes it, and there's a process because we have to go and ask the county and we have to get their buy-off on the tax, and they would not approve it if there was a county wrap tax. They just have to certify that there isn't a county wrap tax, then we can pass it, and then it goes on the ballot in November. So then at the end, we get to decide whether or not we want to do that. But one of the advantages to that tax as opposed to a property tax is because it's on sales, then our neighbors who come here to enjoy, for example, the splash pad and shop at the grocery store or at Ace or go to some fast food in the area, they then contribute to the cost of managing the splash pad or the parks that they're enjoying while they're in the area. So it actually distributes the cost or the money people are paying for the things that they use in the city among people who don't live in the city. It's not just Highlanders that pay for it. It's also people that are here, and some of them are in the summer they're enjoying our splash pad, or they're down at Heritage Park, or maybe Highland Glen. Now that we have the East-West Connector, and by the way, that the official opening for the East-West Connector Road, that's the extension of Canal Boulevard that's starts near the American Fork Irrigation Pond off Alpine Highway on the west side and ends at Highland Gardens or Harvey Boulevard on the east side there on North County Boulevard. There are two lights there. Those will start working May 15th. We'll have a celebration in the morning starting at 9:30, and we will then open the road at 1 p.m. And so after 1 p.m. on May 15th, you'll now be able to get over to Cedar Hills or the temple or the hospital using a better connection than currently exists. Or if you live in Cedar Hills and your kids go to Mountain Ridge Junior High, you'll be able to get there a little bit more quickly in the morning and pick your kids up in the afternoon. And that is a big deal because a connector at some location has been planned for over 40. This particular connection has been funded for over 10 years, and it's finally being completed. So for all of you, those of you who didn't believe it was possible or thought, oh, it won't happen in my lifetime, it is happening. And thanks to a lot of people that made that happen. We worked with the governor's office, with the state legislature, with the Utah State Developmental Center, with UDOT, with MAG, and with the residents who are going to be impacted. We tried to mitigate that as much as possible. So thank you for all who participated in the process. This will be a really good thing. And in fact, if you look at the projections, by 2030, having that road there will reduce miles traveled in vehicle by about 1 million miles a year, and will cut down on hours waiting in traffic in total by about 18,000 hours a year. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of wear and tear on cars, and a lot of emissions that matter, especially in the winter months when we have inversion. So thanks to everybody that was involved. It's taken years. I know that a lot of the elected officials over the years have worked really hard on it. but it is going to be done here in exactly 1 month. So in 28 days, we will, or 30 days, we'll have a road running that has been dreamed of for a long time. Anyway, so that's a little bit about taxes. I wouldn't be surprised to see the council discuss the RAP tax, put it on the ballot, because it looks like it has support. And I think some of the opposition might be because people just don't know. But in any case, it will go to the ballot and we will get to vote on it. That is one of the requirements. It will last 10 years and then it can be renewed. Cedar Hills and American Fork both have the RAP tax, or they both use that tax. That's how they funded some of the improvements that they have to their parks, like the pickleball courts that they have over on the south, just south of our city. And it would help us to complete and then fund the maintenance of the park we'll be building in Mountain Ridge, and that will likely start next year. We'll go out to bid. Maybe there's some work that can be done in the fall, but most likely we won't see a lot of progress until next year, but that will be in this year's budget. So we'll start to make progress on that, and we will begin with at least 4 pickleball courts, and there's room for at least another 4 and possibly more. But it's likely that we would have 8 courts there. There's a possibility that we would be putting courts in other parks in our community, but this is where we're starting, and we'll try and get that park finished at the same time that we make improvements to the other parks in the area. So there is some focus on that. I know a lot of you have asked about whether or not there are other parks that are going to be improved that are existing parks, and the answer is yes. We did put bathrooms in some of them this last year, and then we will be looking at putting other amenities like pavilions in parks, especially Beacon Hills is one of the priority parks that we're looking at. All right, next chart. There was a question on the survey about a referendum that was run a little over a year ago to take a decision that the council made at the end of 2019 and put it on the ballot. That was the decision in the Wimbledon subdivision to eliminate about a little over a mile of trail and over 5 acres of open space, sell that to the residents. And a referendum was filed, opposed that. That was a 3-2 vote. And the current council can always overturn the actions of a previous council. And so we asked, do you want the current council to overturn that decision, or do you want it to be on the ballot in the fall? And we gave you an option of I just don't know. So it looks like about 40% just didn't feel like they had enough information to make a decision about that. 23% wanted the council to overturn that decision, and 37% said, no, we want to vote on it. So with those kind of numbers, I expect that that will be an item on the ballot this fall, and we will provide you information about that decision. The city will provide balanced information, just factual, because that we can't take one side or another on that, but we will give you factual information, and then you can make up your own decision. I'm sure there will be groups that are pro and con on that, where you can get more detailed information, and you can call any of your elected representatives to ask their opinion about that decision. They just can't, we can't put an opinion in a newsletter, but as an individual, any of our council members or I can have an opinion. So if you want an opinion from anybody, just call them up, ask them, and they can share that with you as an individual. All right. So those are the questions that I have charts for. If we want to look at just data. The rest of the questions, looking at, there was another set of questions about library services for adults. Let me pause here and go and see if there are any questions in where am I here? So if there are any questions on YouTube. Good grief. Hang on, I need to get to where I can see. So I'm just bringing up the YouTube video. Let me check in the comment section, see if anybody has made any comments. No. And let me check my phone and email and check texts. No texts. And let me check email real quick. And I don't see any email. Let me see, is there anything else that I can talk about? We have Arbor Day tree sales coming up the end of April, 1st of May. We have a lot just east of City Hall and the police station where we order trees and residents can buy them at a pretty good price and plant them. We did have a very sad event happen last week. One of the people who volunteered a lot and helped with trees specifically, Deverell Barfus, passed away. Suddenly, he was the chair of the tree commission. I think he was the first chair and served there for quite a while. He loved pruning trees and helping people learn how to do trees. So we will be taking one of those trees and planting them in a park in his honor. Deverell's wife, Rena, we've asked her to help by picking out a tree that she thinks Deverell would like, and then we'll work with her on a good place to put that, and we will have a nice ceremony and honor his contributions to Highland. He was always serving other people and was actually someone I considered a dear friend, and not only to me, but to Highland. He was a great friend to Highland, so we really appreciate everything he did, and we appreciate his wife for supporting him in all his service endeavors for the city. Anything else? I can't think of anything else, so I'm actually going to sign off early today. It's about 7:30. I will sign off and thank those of you that may be watching or will watch in the future. I think the survey information that we went through was kind of interesting. I like that we actually, on all of our service ratings, have an upward trend year over year. And I appreciate all of you residents for everything you do to make Highland a wonderful place to live. Have a good evening, and we'll see you next month.